You're listening to the Seahawks Insiders, getting you ready for Seahawks football every Sunday. Presented by Delta, the official airline of the Seahawks. Now, here's your host, Jen Mueller.
Heading into week 3, the Seahawks have evened their record at 1-1. John, there's plenty to talk about from this one, but I guess the question that I have, and I think I'm going to have this question for another couple of weeks, what did we actually learn from week 2 in Pittsburgh?
I think we learned what we got a glimpse of in week 1 is that this defense is legit and the defensive front is outstanding. Like, those dudes are playing really well up front. And I think offensively, we saw the offense start to look like what we hope and expect it to be. They were running the ball better. They're distributing the ball, moving the quarterback more under center. Just a lot more what we thought Kubiak's offense was going to be than maybe what was on display in week 1.
How much of that do you think was just getting that extra week in there and you kind of fit the pieces in, everybody feels a little bit more confident versus what we actually saw in the Steelers?
Yeah, I think, look, it's a small sample size, but I think 2 weeks in, it's probably safe to say the 49ers are a better defense than Pittsburgh. Some of that, too, can just be how you game plan for a specific opponent. There might have been something the way San Francisco's front plays, different things they saw that just they didn't like some of the looks that they were getting that they did like in Pittsburgh. So everything's so new this time of year. Like, stuff changes so much week to week. It's hard to make any big statements. But, yeah, it just looked like when we talked about what we saw in training camp and their one drive in the preseason, the things they were doing, it just looked more like that to me.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it, right? Mm-hmm. And you are seeing enough of the flashes. And they scored on the opening drive.
Yeah.
That was
First time in a while.
First time that they had gotten a touchdown on the opening drive since 2023. That means it was the first time under head coach Mike Macdonald. I totally had blocked from my mind that it had been that long.
And after the game, he's like, oh, yeah, I like that. It's kind of one of those like, oh, this is better. It's much more fun to play with an early lead.
Makes a huge difference on that front. You know what else strikes me as I keep seeing headlines that are coming out of the NFL? How many injuries there are around the league. Yeah. And I know that we have had a few injuries, but the number of quarterbacks that had been hurt, the number of significant injuries, like, this is a knock on wood, cross your fingers, every single week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough sport, but yeah, sometimes some years, some chunks of the season, it just feels like it's worse. And then you see when it's quarterbacks, it really stands out when you have a guy like Joe Burrow getting hurt, and it's tough to see. And it is why, so often we hear teams talk about their depth and about the importance of that. Like, that's unfortunately a lot of times how teams' fates are decided, is like how well your guys step up when they're called upon.
Yeah, so it's Burrow, it's Jaden Daniels, it's Purdy, although Purdy might be back this week. I think McCarthy's dealing with something. Around the league, it has truly been remarkable. So Sam Darnold has stayed healthy, and when you talk about the depth of the team, really what Seattle's looking at right now is depth in the secondary, because Devin Witherspoon was not able to play against Pittsburgh. Nick Emenwari still not ready to go, although not on IR, so that's a really good sign. But yeah, you need those guys back there, and you also know that you need more than 53 for the entire year.
We talk about the 70. That's a critical part of our team, and I think is going to be something that we're going to be leaning on to have success over the course of the year, whether it's our DBs or whatever position. There's going to be times where a position's low on guys, and we're going to be dependent on those guys to step up and go play. And they did that this week, and that's great. But every week we're going to be dealing with that sort of thing. That's the nature of our business.
That's a term we've heard Mike Macdonald and John Shire throw around a lot, is this idea of a 70-man roster. And, the rules that changed during COVID to elevate players really kind of changed the game. Like, teams can get these guys on the field, and the teams like it because it just makes field deeper. But it's good for the players. Like, it makes these practice squad guys, ready squad, as Mike likes to call it. It makes them feel much more like they're a part of the team. And we've seen it really pay off both for the team and for players. You go back to last season, Josh Jobe was a practice squad guy to start the year. Now he's one of their top 3 corners who's playing starter snaps every week because he earned it and he went out and proved himself. Cody White's kind of this guy who's been back and forth, and in the past he would have just been a guy that hangs on the practice squad and you don't really think about him, but he's out contributing on game day, and it also allows you to kind of flop guys back and forth, like we've seen Shaquille Griffin, Cody White back and forth, kind of reward more guys, get them on the roster. So yeah, it is important because those guys, not all 17 of them, but quite a few guys on the practice squad are going to be asked to help out this season.
Yeah, a couple of things on this. So John Schneider actually talked to us during our production meeting during the preseason, and he is the one that introduced that term ready squad. And it was funny because Mike McDonald was like, I quite honestly don't even remember the origin story of that. But when John was talking about it, it was in terms of, so it was heading into that third preseason game. And he said, look, I know everybody is looking at roster cut down date as 53. What we have told the coaches, and the entire scouting department knows this, right? I need you to think about November and December. I don't need you to think about week 1 and week 2. We've got that covered. This is about thinking long term. So look at the schedule, look at who you're going to need, just kind of try to make the best projections. You cannot predict all injuries. I know this, right? But try to make your best projections. If we're going to project into the future, then those 70 guys are expected to play. So let's not treat them, to your point, as if they are not going to play. You are not practicing to play. You are ready to play. And I think we heard Leah Williams this week talking about, and we heard Mike too, right? Next man up mentality is a really nice thing to say. Everybody says it.
Yeah.
It really comes down to the mentorship that you want to give the guys that are right behind you. And that is competition, right? And it's sometimes challenging because that guy could come and take your spot. And Seattle has done a really good job with the leaders, and the leaders kind of reaching back and helping those guys, to Mike McDonald's point of, I'm not worried about the next guy coming in. I'm actually pretty excited because we've seen so many good things in practice, right? Like it's a totally different mindset, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is changing around the league.
Yeah, that's something Mike McDonald brought up last season. It's like, I get excited for this. Like, not that you're excited guys get hurt, but like you want to see what guys do with their opportunities. And Kobe Bryant's another one. He wasn't on the practice squad, but he was a guy who was kind of stuck in a backup role, doing things on special teams and impressing coaches in practice. And then he got his chance and he seized it. And there's multiple guys playing big roles on this team who were not starters a year ago, but they earned it. So it's good to see. Another little subplot of that I really like, that both Mike and Pete has referenced. When you're setting that 53, because you look at it as a 70, you're not necessarily making decisions on these are our top 53. It's who's going to get claimed if we release a guy. Because they were both kind of honest about that when they were asked about the undrafted rookies who made the team. Like, hey, they did a great job, but also we're looking at, who's going to get claimed, who's not. Like, you release a veteran guy, you can sign him right back. He's not subject to waivers. So kind of a fun little game teams all play of who we want to protect and who do we think we can get to the practice squad.
Which is why there was a couple of those on cutdown day where you're like, how did this guy make the right? Like Nick Callerup. We didn't talk about him at all during the preseason. By the way, that was on purpose. And yet, he's there and people are trying to figure out why for that exact reason.
Or last year, I think they kept 11 linemen to start the season.
They did. They loved the offensive line.
Linemen are hard to, teams always need offensive linemen. So if you have a young lineman, you kind of want to protect that guy. So again, the new practice squad rules really kind of change the game of how you structure that roster.
I also cannot help but notice that there's a lot of people in the building that have Ready Squad T-shirts.
No,
they haven't given one to us. Did we not make the cut on that?
We're not even on the Ready Squad. We're on the talking about it squad.
Can I please get a shirt that says talking about it squad? Oh, if somebody could make that happen, that would certainly make my day. Byron Murphy made a lot of people's days, including his own against Pittsburgh. And look, we have talked about him for a while. People have wanted the proof, which is the numbers. And I totally get it. It's not that he just started to be disruptive, but it certainly showed up on a different way Sunday.
I feel like I've answered Byron's questions pretty consistently over the last year because I feel like he's played at that level. So I think it's more of a function of just I'm happy that now the numbers are there, I guess. But I think the tape tells a similar story of how well he's playing. But production does matter, obviously. I mean, especially individually. So I'm happy that he was able to get the production he got on Sunday.
I loved when Jaron Reed was asked about it after the game, and he kind of paused and looked at everybody. He's like, "Look, I'm not surprised at all." That's what he said, and he's like, because he's been talking. I mean, it might be a little bit of hyperbole, but going back to training camp, he said Byron Murphy's a defensive player of the year type player, where it's like the guys who have put in the work with him and watched him in practice, and even how he played last season. Again, the stats weren't there, but a lot of that was just what they asked him to do. He was that guy playing nose tackle, taking on guards and centers. eating up blocks to help free up his teammates. And so everybody who's been around him, watched him work, just understands the talent he is, feels like it's just a matter of time till these breakout games happen. And we saw one, and I think the numbers are going to be a lot different this year by the time the dust settles.
Well, how about Leo saying, look, the only thing I can help him with is how to read pass rush. He goes, he can take on a double team better than I can. He is the best, run stuffer that I've been around. Like, there's nothing there. But I also thought it was interesting because I did talk to Byron Murphy after the game, and his smile when I asked about just getting to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
First of all, he had a lot of bling, so it was very shiny, very, very shiny. And he just had the biggest smile in the entire world. Like, it means a lot to him, but also the pressure that you can put on yourself, again, Leo's comments this week, if you don't get the big splash plays.
Yeah.
You're still doing your job. Everybody wants the stats.
Yeah, look, it's human nature. You put in the work, you want the reward for it. So it's good for him to show up and make some splashy plays and have people talking about him after a game and teammates and coaches loving him up. It's great to see, and I think he's not going to get a sack and a half every week. It'd be great if he did, but I think we're going to see a lot more productive season just as he matures. He talked about he's seeing the game different, pass rush stuff. He's learning how to do this even better, and he was good as a rookie, but he's having a good year.
All right, well, let's look at what that matchup is this week against the Saints, because the other part of the storyline is Byron Murphy had 3 quarterback hits on Aaron Rodgers. Derek Hall had 3 quarterback hits, 9 total on Rodgers. They did not need to blitz to get there.
4 total, I think.
I think it was 4 total. Now, as I'm looking at Spencer Rattler, starting quarterback for the Saints, just in case people are not familiar with that name, because it just, I don't know. I love the name. It just trips me up every time. He was sacked 3 times last week by the 49ers. Also worth noting that Fred Warner was Defensive Player of the Week after playing the Saints. But I was really surprised he's only been sacked 4 times this year. And that at the top of the list, you've got guys like Aaron Rodgers, Cam Ward, Geno's up there, Russ is up there. I was a little bit surprised, apparently, that offensive line is more stout than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, they've invested a lot into that line, a lot of high picks in recent years. They, unfortunately, are a little banged up right now. They're missing some guys. But and I think Rattler is also, from what I've seen and what I've heard talking to people there, like, he's done a pretty good job getting the ball out, not holding it and taking those sacks. And, that would kind of stand to reason with what we've seen out of Kellen Moore over his career as a play caller. Like, he's not a guy that's going to – he's been quarterback and he's been in a high-octane, fast-passing offense his whole life. So I think he understands the value of helping the quarterback out that way.
Well, and if you look at it, and I heard Charles Davis, who was on the TV call this week, describe it this way, that offense functions as if it's going station to station in baseball. And the numbers certainly bear that out. So after 2 games, they are averaging 4.7 yards a pass and 4.4 yards per rush. Now, I know the defense would like to allow fewer than that this week. I'm sure that's going to be a goal. But how does that affect what you're doing if you're really just going for those short plays, right? You're probably not going to be lining up to take a whole bunch of deep shots downfield.
Yeah.
Defense gets a little limited.
Yeah. I mean, but it's one of those where, okay, so the defense you counter, you're going to be able to put more guys in the box to stop that. You're going to get more aggressive attacking those short routes, and then can the offense counter and have a counter punch to that to try to throw it over you? We'll see. This Seattle secondary's played very well, but yeah, it's it's a fun, different challenge each week. I'm pretty excited about what our defense could show, though.
I am also surprised when I look at the numbers. It's pretty even. Like, you look across the board, offensive numbers, defensive numbers, you would be hard-pressed to tell who was 1-1 and who was 0-2. And by the way, those Saints games have been decided by a combined 12 points.
Yeah.
They have been within
one-score
striking
games both.
distance.
Yeah, they're feisty.
Yep. They are a feisty team. But you might get even more this week out of Uchenna Nwosu. 16 snaps last week.
Yeah.
Definitely on a pitch count.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a preseason for him. He missed a lot of time with that knee surgery and didn't, he wasn't on the field for most of training camp. So this was never about like, hey, we're going to throw him in there. And it's good that you have a deep edge rotation right now where you've got, 3 guys and Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, and DeMarcus Lawrence eating up most of the snaps. You can kind of ease Uchenna in and build him up to full strength, and then you add another great player when he's ready to go.
Well, they do anticipate him playing a larger role as the season goes on, which, to John's point, helps an already deep pass rush group.
Well, it's just great to have him back. He's gonna continually. It's not easy to just step in your first NFL experience and go and play a game, but it's a great first step. It's a great foundation. I think he gained confidence. We're in a position now where I think you can see some sort of increase to some sort of degree over the next X amount of time. I mean, we're not going to just stick at that play level as long as he's feeling well. So, and it also lets have a little bit more rotation at the edge position. So it's kind of good for him, good for everybody type of thing.
I wonder what part of the presentation he takes on Saturdays, John. Another revelation that we had this week, that the defensive line meets together and has presentations. And I really wanted to ask if PowerPoints are involved because I hate PowerPoints, and it would kind of make me laugh if NFL players have to make PowerPoints. I'm just assuming that they do. Really interesting, though, because when you have a group of pass rushers that is as proficient, potentially proficient, that's what I was going to say. It's a lot of P's. That was a poor choice of words on my part. You really do have to have a plan in place. And because Mike Macdonald is calling the defense, and because you are trying to read the offense, sometimes it is going down to the very last second. And so the presentation is to help them get their rush plans in place.
Yeah, I think how Leo described it, like you'll have, Byron presents on the opposing center or guard, and they each take different positions on that line to sort of say, hey, here's how he pass sets. Here's how it's really fascinating because you think you just, if you're casually watching, like, okay, they block, you go around them, whatever, you try to go through them. But there's so much little nuance to pass rushing, which I'm getting off topic. But I think this is why a lot of times we see defensive linemen develop later than some positions. Like, there are rookies who do thrive, but a lot of these guys like Byron Murphy, like Jaron Reed, play their best football into their 30s because there's just so much subtle nuance in what they do.
Well, and Derek Hall said this year in training camp, this is going to be way more fun because I understand exactly what's going on now. I will tell you that most of the conversations on the sideline during the game is all about their rush plan. It's which lane are you in, which move are you using, and there's quite a bit of adjustment in game once they actually figure out how that is being played. But that is mostly what those guys are talking about. We have been talking long enough. How about if we pause and get a word from our presenting sponsor?
Statistically, the world is losing color. Just consider all-white kitchens, beige baby nurseries, a sea of gray cars. But in the hundreds of destinations Delta flies to, you can rediscover color in the bright blue waters of Hawaii, the emerald green hills of Scotland, the berry pink cherry blossoms of Tokyo, and so much more. Sometimes opening your world is all it takes to open your mind, which is why when you fly Delta, your potential takes off when you do. Delta, official airline of the Seattle Seahawks.
Before we highlight the Seahawks offense and one of the new players in particular, let's not forget to talk about Alvin Kamara and what he does for that Saints offense, because it is very clear that they want to get him the ball, certainly on the ground, but his all-purpose yards, they are up there at the end of every year, and it's been true the first 2 weeks of the season.
You want a not-so-fun stat, Jen?
I don't usually like those, but sure, John.
3 career games against the Seahawks. Alvin Kamara is averaging 178 scrimmage yards per game. Most recently, a big game in 2022 down in New Orleans. That's the third most by a player against a single opponent, minimum of 3 games played in NFL history. Or, I'm sorry, in the Super Bowl era.
Way to bring down the vibe.
Yeah, so, you know,
that's
if you're looking for where to start when it comes to defending the Saints, let's work on Alvin Kamara because he has had a good time playing against the Seahawks.
Yes. Well, if we take a look at what he did last week, 21 carries, 99 yards. Like 99 yards rushing is pretty good. It took 21 carries to get there, John. I do actually kind of like that number and that ratio. He caught all 6 balls that were thrown his direction for 21 yards, but his longest run was 15 yards. Like, I get it, but the entire offense has run through him. At the moment, it looks like, kind of like the Seahawks week 1, they're looking for that other counter to him. I mean, I don't know. I feel pretty good about the defense knowing what Kamara can do and loading up against him.
Yeah, I mean, we saw like Christian McCaffrey, great example, week 1. He touched the ball a ton, so his total yards are pretty good, but they held him, I think, under 4 yards a carry. I know the Niners as a team are 3.4 a carry, so.
Yes, there is some catch and run for those running backs, though, that the defense needs to clean up. And that is also where Kamara has done a lot of damage.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys that just, it's so hard to tackle. He's not the obvious, Barry Sanders juking you out of your shoes, but he's got just that, like, subtle, deceptive, almost like slippery running style that.
Ooh. Slippery sounds good. That is not the word that Mike McDonald used,
What was
though.
his
You're
word? I
close. Well, let's find out.
Let's hear from Mike.
Well, he's been a really good player for a while now in our league. He's got a kind of a smooth speed about him, where he has accelerate. It's such a smoothness to his running style. Doesn't lack physicality. It's just smoother. Change of direction. Obviously the contact balance, body control, all that type of stuff is there. And then him catching the ball to the backfield has always been something that you have to account for with him. And he's playing at a high level right now, so they're doing a good job.
You know what nobody has ever used to describe my running style, John? It's smooth.
Are you more the Matt Hasselbeck giraffe on ice skate style?
No, I
That's
just
a famous
feel like
Mike
I'm.
Holmgren quote for those.
Yes, yes. I feel like a bull running. It doesn't look good. I get there, but it doesn't look great on that front. Yeah, Kamara's smooth.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Better than mine.
I wouldn't say it's better.
Weird that the guy who coaches defense for a living is better at describing an opposing running back than me.
Hey, John, I was not against your description. I was just pointing out that you were close, but not quite to what Mike had said. Now, when it comes to talking about Seattle's offense, and it's funny because I have not talked to Gray Zabel after a game yet. I'm kind of waiting because I know, just like we were talking about at the beginning of this episode, right? It takes a couple of weeks to get settled in, to figure out what's going on. You really, as a rookie, do not have a good point of reference until you get to week 3 or 4, or maybe until you face the same opponent twice, right? Because then you've got a kind of a catalog and you know what to expect. I don't know that is the case for Gray Zabel. It feels like he has been playing for forever. Certainly sounds like it the way Coach describes it.
Yeah, I'd just say Gray is steady. Like he's just, which is what we need. We need a tough, steadying force in the inside of our offensive line, and I think his chemistry with Charles and Jalen and Olu is really cool. That's what we need in our offensive line, and even being a rookie, he's a driving force behind their chemistry, and doesn't feel like he's a rookie. I guess is probably my biggest compliment I can give him.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to be perfect playing on the offensive line, especially a rookie, but he has been so good these first couple of weeks for a guy just being plugged in there. First NFL experience, which, again, he's making the leap from North Dakota State. Great program, but not quite the same level of competition that what he's seen in the NFL, and he's more than held his own. I mean, he's looking like a very, very good player on that left side of Charles Cross. You go back and look at the numbers, Ken Walker did, I think it was like 80 plus 90 yards of his 105 yards running left. And part of that was, hey, TJ Watt over there, he's pretty good. Let's run that way, which seems very basic, but it worked because TJ Watt almost always lined up on the Seahawks right side, the Steelers left, and they ran away from him. But, man, those two, Charles Cross and Gray Zabel, if you watch some of those long runs, they're way downfield running guys over.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I think perhaps most telling from my side of things on the radio broadcast, we haven't called his name at all.
No.
And you never look down and be like, he got knocked on his wallet. Like, it truly is impressive.
Yeah.
Like, the being unnoticed on the offensive line is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
That is exactly
like an umpire in baseball. You don't want to be talked about.
Right. That's right. Or an official in football. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't be talking about them either.
Yeah. Long snappers.
Long
That might be my favorite. If you're ever talking about a long snapper, it ain't good. You're never like, damn, he snapped that ball right on the money. It's true. When was the last time you talked about a long snapper, unless it was like, uh-oh?
I'm going to talk to Chris Stoll about this because he might take offense to it. And maybe now
I'll shouldn't, because you know what? I don't think I've written about Chris Stoll in 3 years because he's damn good at his job.
Well, you make a point.
Yeah.
Steve does say the hold the snap.
Okay.
The snap, the hold, the kick. I mean, he gets.
Maybe we can get him to work in the hold by Stoll every time.
By Stoll, great. I'll see what Steve can do on that front.
I feel like I'm getting us off the
In
rails.
the meantime, I'm going to bring you right back because the only thing we need are two things to have a Seahawks win on Sunday.
Well, we just talked about Alvin Kamara a whole bunch and how he's been the focal point of their offense. So I want fewer than 100 scrimmage yards. He's going to get some. I don't think you're going to shut him.
100 scrimmages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
that would be impressive.
Call it, 50, 60 on the ground, a few in the air, and we'll call that good. And then I want to see these interceptions keep happening. Not necessarily because the interception itself is a play, but it's showing, Mike always talks about the the pass rush and the coverage working together. Two interceptions a game. You got a young quarterback coming in. Let's get him a little rattled and make that big play.
Spencer
Rattles.
Yeah, that was good. He didn't even know how good he was.
Maybe.
Okay, I have two that are totally different than yours, which is always a good thing.
I went all Seahawks defense, so I left
So I would like the Seahawks to once again score on their opening drive. The Saints, meanwhile, have not put up points in the first quarter of either of their games. So that puts you in a really good position if you can maintain that trend on the Saints side of things, but also kind of build that momentum opening drive on offense. And this one is also, it's well within your ability. Just don't commit to penalties. Seattle has done a really good job of that. The Saints, however, have struggled. So 13 penalties week one. They cut it in half last week with 7. They've also had a couple of missed field goals. They've put the ball on the ground. They have found all sorts of different ways to make life difficult on themselves. Don't do that for Seattle this week. Make them frustrated. Just do what you're doing. No penalties. No drops. Clean game.
Indeed. We forgot something important, Jen. We did. Collectively, we gotta give a little shout out to our friends in Prosser, Washington.
Oh,
home of Saints coach Kellen Moore. Nice little local kid story. So
yes, it is. I was so focused on Seattle. Yes.
Yeah. Who I'm old enough to have covered Kellen Moore.
I was going to say I remember him in high school.
Teams up in high school, setting
covered
records.
him a couple of times at Boise. Yeah. It's.
And also, he's the head coach. He unseated Mike McDonald from the youngest.
Youngest.
Coach.
That's true.
Yeah.
And while I wish all the best to Kellen Moore throughout the season,
let's hope his family has a horrible drive home.
I don't want
his
family to be celebrating on the way home. But all the other weeks of the year, we're right there with him. All right. John's been a downer this entire time.
What are you talking about?
I'm going to call it. I'm calling it. That is it. That is all we have for you on this episode of the Seahawks Insiders podcast. We'll see you next week.